Hi, my name is Rebecca Moug, and I am a first-year nursing student at GPRC, and I did a literature review on the benefits of drawing to study anatomy for this year's student research conference. First, I'm going to be talking about a little bit of the history of anatomical study, the benefits of using drawing as a primary method for studying anatomy, and the future of studying anatomy. I will also touch on my discussion and conclusion at the end. So the history of studying anatomy. So it has been a science since the 2nd century. At first, it was loosely based on animal theories, and it belonged solely to scientists. In the 16th century, this invited more artists to engage in the subject. For example, Leonardo da Vinci, he published the first anatomical drawings that were based on his own dissections, and he also published The Vitruvian Man, which I will show in a little bit. In the 17th century, anatomical theaters were very popular, and basically what that would look like would be a scientist dissecting a body in front of a live audience. I have a photo of that to show as well. And it was a very interesting integration of art and science because it was a very performative act, and it invited people to be interested in the subject even further. In the 19th century, anatomy became a true science once again, and public dissections were discontinued, which excluded the public from engaging with the subject once again. Today, anatomical study is reserved almost exclusively for post-secondary institutions and research hospitals, but there's a lot of media that exists that can be looked up easily. So if someone's curious about what a certain body part looks like, they can just Google it. So images, animations, videos are all accessible to everyone, and it's a very publicly interested subject for sure. So here we have Leonardo da Vinci's Vitruvian Man. So that was first published in 1490. Next, we have an anatomical theater in Sweden, and this one was built in 1663. I'm just going to get my laser pointer here. So you can see here, this is where the body would lie, and scientists would be dissecting it, and here is where the people would sit, and you could see that the way that the risers are set up is so that everyone could have a very good view of what the dissection looked like. So the benefits of using drawing primarily to study anatomy. So animations, videos, and anything visual art related stems back from drawing, which has been a thing in anatomical study since the 16th century. And it's not only great for demonstrating, it's great for learning as well. So first and foremost, it increases memory retention. So drawing aid integrates kinesthetic and pictorial processing. So kinesthetics refers to the way that humans are aware of our positioning and movement of our bodies, and pictorial processing is what your brain goes through when you're actually just looking at an image. So drawing is a very intricate dance up and down neural pathways that requires motor skill, and it requires processing up in the brain. And to bring an image from your brain onto the piece of paper, it takes a lot more effort than simply just thinking and reading about the subject, for example. So it puts meaning on what you're drawing and allows you to remember it faster and to access it later when you need it. It also aids in conceptualizing 3D features. So one study suggests that it's possible that drawing will help an individual conceptualize what a body part looks like, similar to how dissection would aid a person in learning about a certain anatomical concept. It also enhances acquisition and long-term retention of knowledge. So not only does drawing allow you to easily recall something, it allows you to keep it in your brain for a longer period of time. It also increases student engagement. So simply put, applying visually artistic methods to anatomical study serves the benefit of joyful engagement. It's a lot more fun than sitting in a lecture theater listening to an instructor drone on about concepts. It's easier and more fun than reading or thinking about the subject, like I mentioned earlier. Also, visual artistic methods within and outside the dissection room improve engagement and interactivity that enhances learning. As well, employing artistic methods may have an advantage in developing interpersonal skills like communication and empathy. And this doesn't just have to be drawing. It could also be performative art, it can be painting, it can be using clay modeling. Using artistic methods in general and activating the creative portion of your brain will help people who are in healthcare especially become more interpersonal with their profession, which is really important for example, nurses or physicians, because it's important that we build interpersonal relationships and build public trust with our clients and patients. So another thing I wanted to look into is the future of anatomical study. And one of the first things that came to my mind was cadavers. A lot of post-secondary institutions will use cadaver labs to instruct on anatomical concepts and processes for healthcare fields. And they provide a very realistic demonstration of the human body, but they're extremely expensive to maintain, as well as to acquire and to dispose of. And they also are associated with some negative psychological effects. For example, they have the potential, as one study suggests, to desensitize healthcare students with the concept of death. So what's put in place for some post-secondary institutions is the use of three-dimensional imaging and modeling. Not only is it more cost-effective, but it can still be just as interactive as using a cadaver lab when it's not always at your disposal. Not only that, it's very interactive in that you can reset the technology so that it can be used over and over and over again, whereas with a cadaver, it's typically a one-time use. So an example of some advanced three-dimensional modeling would be intraoperative magnetic resonance imaging, which is used by neurosurgeons not just to prepare and plan for a procedure that they're about to do, but they use the technology in real time as they're doing a procedure to visualize the pathways that they need to conduct in order to complete a surgery, which is pretty cool. So in conclusion, visual art has been integrated for a very long time, since the 16th century, in anatomical study, and not because it's just easy to teach using diagrams and drawings, etc., but it's better for increased memory retention and for increasing student engagement. And it also provides the foundation for a lot of 3D imaging and modeling that are used today. So everything comes back to drawing, essentially, which is pretty cool. So first and foremost, for my discussion, I'd like to address what drew me to exploring this topic in the first place. So as a nursing student, I had to take NS 1500, Anatomy and Physiology, in my first semester. And part of the syllabus was 5% of your grade would be awarded to you if you submitted drawings of various anatomical structures and processes for a study guide, just to submit to the teacher before each midterm. And I took this very seriously because first and foremost, I saw it as a break from writing cue cards and reading the textbook. And I drew very meticulous, color-coded drawings and was very deliberate about what I was doing. And I found myself coming back to my notebook over and over and over again, and anatomy and physiology became my favorite subject to study despite its difficulty. And after doing this literature review, I know now that it's no secret as to why I enjoyed it so much. And not only was I memorizing things faster, but I could really understand the concepts, and I was engaged with the material wholeheartedly, and I think I can attribute that to drawing. So I'll show you a few of my drawings here. So this is a drawing on the left here. I'll get my pointer up. This one here is of the upper leg bone, the femur, and its various structures and details. And here we have a few bones of the foot. So here we have the upper arm bone, the humerus, and we also have the lower arm bones, the radius and the ulna. And here is Leonardo da Vinci's drawing from his first publications of the arm bones. And you might see a little bit of similarity here. This one is from my notebook. You could see, yeah, obviously very similar. He could work a little bit on his detailing and shading, but he's not here to receive that feedback. So what can you do? So any ideas for further research? The answer to that is yes. One thing I would like to look into is comparing class averages from before the implementation of the 5% bonus for submitting drawings for NS 1500 versus afterward. I talked to Dr. Sean Irwin about this. He oversaw my work here, and he was also oversees NS 1500. And we talked a little bit about it, and he told me that he had only implemented the change in the syllabus 2 years ago. So there wouldn't be enough data to consider, and there wouldn't be enough to attribute drawing as the sole reason for an increased class average. So long as there's no change in the syllabus down the road, I think this could be interesting to go back to in a few years and compare class averages to see if maybe drawing can be the reason for an increase in student scores. Thank you so much for tuning into my presentation today. I'm very appreciative of the interest. I'd like to thank Dr. Sean Irwin for overseeing my work, for editing my paper, and helping me out along the way. And I would also like to thank the Student Research Committee at GPRC for hosting the conference. Even though it was virtual, it was still a lot of fun, and it was great to take the time to dive into a topic that I'm extremely passionate about. So thank you so much, everybody.